Well, hello. Good morning, everybody. Happy Friday. We've made it to another weekend. Hello, all. Hello, all, as we're all trickling in. I love that there are people that are already waiting before the show turns on now. That makes me, yeah, Alex, it is 9 on the dot because I knew you'd be there waiting to let me know what a failure I was. I love that so many of you guys are waiting for the show to start. It absolutely keeps me going here. I appreciate it very much. Hopefully, you're all having a fantastic start to your morning. I am. It's another weekend. Not that it matters for me, of course. This is nonstop. What's up, Elf? What's up, Mickey? What's up, everybody across all of the um platforms here? Alex, I could never hate you. For every starting at 9 o'clock on the comment on the dot comment you make, I have Alex loves drones comment prepped and ready. So we got a good thing going here. Thank you for everybody who's still continuing to show up. I had a friend of mine tell me, he's like, you know how I know you're going to be successful at this is that you're so consistent. He goes, because I'm not online. I'm probably the least online podcaster maybe ever. And and he was like, you have no idea how many people do what you do, and you just can't count on them to show up every single day at the exact same time. And I promise you, at the very least, that's the only thing I can do. People that know me know it's one of my catchphrases. Showing up and prepared puts you ahead of 90% of all people that you are competing with, that you are doing business with, whatever the situation is. A lot of people either aren't prepared or just don't come on time. And if you're willing to do both of those things, you're already ahead of 9 and 10 people. And I think that's a very important thing to drive home. That's um that's like one of my main messages of life that I try and push forward to people. As Elf says, as always said, showing up is 90% of the battle. It's not even a hyperbole. It's very real. I will be listening, but I will be driving the bus, so I can't comment. I'll allow it this time, Jim, but don't make it a habit, all right? I'm joking, of course. Thank you for being here as per usual. We've got a lot of stories to jump into here, and I at least want to start out. I was watching the continued fallout from the execution taking place in Madison on Wednesday night. And it's crazy what this new unfettered version of the show has kind of allowed me to do, who it's allowed me to come into contact with. And I met a gentleman named Carlos, aka AppTap on TikTok. I actually interviewed him a while ago. I still have to figure out how to export those long form data. That's what this weekend's all about. Is making clips because Violet's going to beat me up if I don't start cutting clips and finding ways to export my long form TikTok stuff onto my YouTube page. So hopefully I can get that conversation between he and I up on the YouTube page. If you guys haven't seen, there was a press conference about what took place in Madison on Wednesday, and a handful of protesters ultimately ended up essentially storming and then taking over the press conference, which I found very interesting. And what I find even more interesting, and I don't mean this as an insult or a slight or anything like that, but I had an hour-long conversation with Carlos probably 3 weeks ago at this point. And I asked him, he thinks that Francesca Hong is not nearly far left enough. He thinks that we need true transcendent change, and listed examples as to why he feels that way. And that was the gentleman that you saw end up on the microphone yesterday during the press conference. And I have to laugh because you're seeing the right immediately seize on that moment, saying, this is what Francesca Hong leftists wants. It's like, ironically, that's what I joked when Carlos came on the show. I said, dude, you're so far left, you make me look like a Reaganist. Like, that's the kind of guy that he is. And I'm not knocking him for it at all. I welcome everybody's opinion on this show, as I always do, and I found him quite fascinating, to be perfectly honest. But you watch the way they're going to weaponize that individual, and I find it funny just because I have a personal relationship with the guy. We're actually both going to be speaking at a Green Party event in Milwaukee on Sunday. Jill Stein's going to be there. It's me, Carlos, and I think 2 or 3 other people are all speakers at this event about third parties and their viability in 2026 and beyond and things like that. So I find it I find the guy interesting. Farrag's asking why does he slam the DSA when they are the most liberal choice right now? Well, it's funny, Farrags. I was talking about that with a good friend of mine in my personal life, and it's a running bit, right? The left always cannibalizes itself. There's so many factions of the left that like nobody sees eye to eye. Like I always joke, I say I'm a lowercase s socialist. Like I own a duplex, so I can't be a full blown. So obviously, I believe in property ownership, right? So there's people that when they hear me say that, they're like, "Oh, I thought Ben was cool," and then they're never going to listen to the show again. What Carlos and people like him represent is something further to the left than I think what is politically viable in 2026, but it doesn't mean they're not allowed to hold that opinion. South Park actually made a joke about this a long time ago. When when they're living in the future because Cartman freezes himself so that he doesn't have to wait for the Nintendo Wii to come out, and then he ends up in the future and all religion has been done away with, and there's all these leftist groups of otters that are now in control of society. And you would think because religion's no longer gone, there's no longer Christianity versus Muslim versus Judaism, all the wars that have been fought over religion have been put to bed. And instead of having the wars on religion, the war is over what the different atheist factions want to name themselves. And it's a group of three different atheists that all have different names that are basically the same name, all in perpetual war with one another. So to answer your question, I feel like that's the best um, example that I can give as to why there's people that exhibit that kind of behavior. But again, not knocking it. You want what you want, and you want to see candidates represent that. Um, yeah, Lorelai saying someone needs to keep dragging everyone to the left. His voice is important. Um, Jake's going off to a paid protester cash weekend. That's good. I still haven't gotten my Soros checks. It seems like a couple of you guys haven't received your Soros checks yet. Mallory, Phil, they haven't. CKK haven't received any of them yet. Yeah, no, I don't get to cash them either. But it's important to keep your eye open for them there. Allow me 1 second here. I want to make sure I have my live up as well. But so I watched that press conference and I'm watching the fallout from it. And I just think it's funny. I think it's fun. I think it's funny that for most of my career as a radio talk show host, I was viewed as a moderate, given, and I always had these beliefs. It goes to show you the political illiteracy that is out there, and there are politicians out there that are willing to exploit those kind of things. Hell, I just saw the most recent polling data on one of those, Kalshi or Pauling Market. Abdul El Sayed, the actual leftist, has a 59% chance of winning the Senate seat. Not winning the primary against Haley Stevens. It's actually significantly higher than that for him at this point. It's to beat Mike Rogers and to win the seat outright. And they're trying to scare you with socialism. And that's going to kind of be the theme of the first hour. And if you think I'm lying, CNN actually is doing their damnedest to try and make this an identity politics thing as fast as they possibly can. And I find it hilarious. And the best part is I figured out how to share video and audio with the people on Facebook and the tube of you. Sorry, TikTok people, you're just going to have to listen, but it's just a news broadcast. It's not like you're missing anything. But listen to what was going on CNN yesterday surrounding El Sayed, because they're pulling out all the stops. They want people to think that people like Tap, like Francesca Hong, like progressives are so scary that nobody's going to vote for them. I want you to listen to this because this reminds me of 2016 liberal BS, and you'll see what I mean in a second. I always use the same reference as a Bernie bro of being called sexist because I had the audacity to say that Hillary Clinton was not a good candidate. Who are you saying isn't the same as Hong, Canary? El Sayed? I think they're exactly the same. I think they have very similar policies, and I'm saying that as a positive. But listen to the way that, oh, Carlos, yes, he is further to the left. I actually asked him during our interview, I said, okay, The primary's over. Francesca Hong is the candidate for the Democratic Party. Are you showing up to vote for her even though you think she doesn't go far enough left enough? And he says, I'm showing up to vote for all the down ballot tickets and I'm writing my own name in for governor. And I'm like, all right, good enough. Glad to know. But yeah, so yes, he's much further left. But so El Sayed, they are pulling the Hillary Clinton trick. And if you think that I am being sarcastic, listen to this is Representative Hillary Schulten of Michigan. She is a Democrat. Now, I want you to listen to how she frames what he is saying and then listen to how she attacks him.
There is a uniquely sexist bent to the things that he has said about women, right? He said that Congresswoman Stevens couldn't string two sentences together, that she was sort of an empty vessel. When comparing her and her other female Democratic primary opponent, Mallory McMurrow, he said essentially there's no difference between the two candidates. One just has better comms and more charisma. It's one thing to attack your opponent because of the substance of their issues. It's another thing to engage in what are deeply, deeply sexist attacks.
So I ask you guys, what did you hear there that was innately sexist? I heard they don't have charisma. I heard one of them's an empty vessel that's being pumped full of $52 million of out-of-state cash. That part was left out of there, but I'll fill in the blanks for you. I heard that one's an empty vessel. I heard that one of the two people, now Mallory McMorrow dropped out, but one of the two people is more charismatic than the other. Those to me all sound like valid criticisms that don't have a single thing to do with sexism. It sounds like none of that has to actually do with the gender of the people, and they actually are substantive attacks. These are the tricks that used to work 10 years ago. Justin says that sounds as sexist as a pair of socks. Exactly. These are the tactics that, had you called me a sexist 10 years ago for my beliefs on one matter or another, I would have backed off. I've told you guys the story before. I actually sat at my desk multiple days in a row and actually had tears in my eyes after the first couple shows that I did after a certain day in October 2023, because so many people called me anti-Semitic after the show wrapped up that I figured I must have been missing something. And the older I get, the more I realize that these are the tricks that they play. And now that it is more common, more noticeable, it completely rolls right off my back. And so they are immediately leaning into the sexism trait surrounding El Sayed as a candidate, and I just don't buy into that. And I can tell by the comments. Mallory saying Dems making up shit per usual. Phil says not a damn thing. Jarmani says not at all. I wish Anna were still here. If only she were still here, because I know she's very big. She's very big on the identity politics, and unfortunately, we're not allowed to be friends anymore. But this is what they're doing. And meanwhile, again, can't stress enough, they're going to talk to you. Did El Sayed diss his opponent's pantsuit? Deanne wants to know. That's funny. No, I haven't heard that yet, but I'm sure it's coming eventually here. But so these are the claims that used to be levied against the progressive. And again, I remind you, democracy's at stake, right? Donald Trump is a unique threat to the American way of life and democracy in general. It's important we pull out the stops to beat him no matter what. And we're supposed to believe that these are the efforts made by somebody who's trying to put the best candidate forward. It's lazy attacks in 2026. Lorelei says Anna sounds like she's the worst. She all right. We're not allowed to be friends anymore. KG says Carlos would be throwing away his governor vote. That's his right, but I think half a loaf is better than none. If you are progressive, Hong will give you the best chance or something. You're preaching, KG, and I know you know that. But that's his right. You're exactly right. It's his right to do what he wants to do with his vote. I disagree with the sentiment as well. I can even tell you, and then I promise I'll pivot back to what I was saying. I'll give you an example of how Carlos thinks. Francesca Hong wants to legalize jazz cabbage to generate revenue. And as you guys know, I am very pro legalization. Not even from a revenue. I don't even provide political or economic rationale behind why I want to recreationalize it. I just don't want to have to drive far away to go and get it. That's my rationale. I don't even try and convince people of other reasons why they should be in favor of it. I just want it. And I don't budge on that. But so she wants to legalize jazz cabbage, take the revenue from the legalization, and then apply that to getting high-speed broadband internet around the entire nation. She calls it weed for speed. And I think the idea is clever. I think it's a fun idea. Again, I don't need any type of explanation as to why we need to legalize it. But if you're going to do that, cool. Like, I think that's a good idea. Carlos's mentality, and you can go back. Well, you can't go back because it was alive. I will post it. Violet's going to beat my ass. That's what I'm doing this weekend. I'm going to cut a bunch of clips and I'm going to post some of my interviews from TikTok on my YouTube page so you guys can all watch them. But if you go and watch what he says, and I'm not talking shit on him, I'm just telling you how he feels. He said, this is why she's cosplaying as a leftist. This is why she's cosplaying as a socialist. It's because she's going to take the revenue generated from legalizing jazz cabbage and funnel that back into the capitalist system. She's like, she wants to take the money and funnel it into the billionaire organizations that are running internet. And I said, but isn't it important for people to have access to internet? And then he starts talking about the platform should be nationalizing it rather than funneling money back into it, giving these incredibly wealthy companies more money. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, that's his logic. That's the way he thinks about things. So far be it for me to judge those kind of things. I find that to be an interesting take on the matter, but I don't begrudge anybody for not wanting to vote for someone, even when I do like the candidate or don't. I see Violet doesn't believe me. Just you wait. Just you wait, Violet. Brian says, come on, Ben, what are we talking about? In this day of saying whatever the hell you want about whatever ugly slur about looks, gender, etc., WTF cares? Oh, absolutely. But see, this is the game that gets played against liberals, not leftists, liberals. It's the same warning I gave about Democrats making their entire thing about Donald Trump's corruption, because yes, Donald Trump is uniquely corrupt as a president, but because Democrats don't stop bitching about corruption, there will be a candidate who does like some corrupt thing and makes $147,000, and all the Republicans are going to act like it's the worst thing you've ever seen in your life. And Democrats are going to have to play along. And it's the same idea here. They sit there bitching nonstop about what Donald Trump says from a sexist, racist, hateful perspective. And then when a Democrat says one thing that's untoward, they try and weaponize that against them, claiming, look, we did it against Donald Trump. We got to do it against the leftists as well. And I'm here to tell you right now, I'm not going to fall for it. I'm not going to allow it. In the clip that I played, there wasn't even anything sexist in there. It was just a bunch of valid criticisms, and that is the Democratic scapegoat. Make it about hating identity. Don't embrace the actual criticism being made. Make it the simple solution so that you can go away with it. That's what I find so funny is I remember in 2016, all the MAGAs saying, you know, liberals will just call you racist to shut down any valid criticisms you have of the Democratic Party. And in 2016, I was like, yeah, okay, racists, whatever. And in 2026, I'm like, okay, all right. I see how liberals do that. I get it now. But nevertheless, you just figured out what jazz cabbage is, Brian. Trees are cool says, I do get that. I get that we want capitalism to die, but I also see real progress here with Hong, not the fake change that we believe in shit. Real positive change that can help propel us more left. I agree. For the record, I 100% agree. What's up, Nataki? I am on board with what you're saying, Trees. I'm just providing the counter narrative of somebody who is significantly further to the left than I am. And how he got there and trying to provide some logic as to why he sees things through that lens. And for the record, when I sat out 2016, I'm sure there would have been somebody saying the same thing to me about the importance of voting for Hillary. And so, like, It's sticky. It's sticky, and as I'll say till I die, this country's too big to be governed by one person. This state's too big to be governed by one person. And so inevitably there's going to be people that are like, I am not represented in a way that is reasonable by this person. It's like, of course you're not, because like 6 people are running to represent 5.7 million people. So inevitably there's going to be people like that. And you know what? There's going to be a ton of people way further to the right than Tom Tiffany that are going to sit out, because they're like, what? He doesn't want to execute all the Muslims. Why would I even bother showing up and voting for this guy? You know what I mean? So like, it exists on both sides, and I find it just to be part of politics. But like, and to show you how scared they are, like I noticed this yesterday. I brought it up with you guys, and I'm bringing it up again today. MSNBC had basically wall-to-wall coverage about the cost of living crisis yesterday. And it was suspicious to me. And of course, they were framing it as uniquely Trump's fault, whereas anyone who knows me knows that this has been a half a century's long issue here. But they're trying to frame it as Trump's tariffs, Trump's wars, and otherwise things were working fine. Thank you for the gifts, everybody on TikTok. I appreciate the contributions very much. And it doesn't stop there. And I'm going to have to apologize ahead of time here for making you guys watch Newsmax, but it's just what I have to do to you right now. I swear to God, we're getting close to the point where they might actually try to make it illegal to support Medicare for all, because eventually enough of us are waking up to the fact, some of us done been there for a while, but enough of us are waking up to the fact that our healthcare system is so much more broken than anything else going on around the industrialized world right now. And listen to the conversation that they were having on Newsmax discussing the fears of socialism and Medicare for all and what the DSA's influence on Democrats is doing.
People in the United States of America proudly flying communist flags and symbolism. Do people forget what it was like under the Red Scare in the late 40s, early 50s? My goodness, if they even thought you were a communist sympathizer, you'd be fired from your job. You would be under scrutiny. You couldn't even have any communist ideas. And now it's almost become popular to have these communist ideas. I have to ask you, what now people are calling the legacy Democrats, the legacy left, where are they? Because this is really scary that there is so much popularity. And again, watching these hearings with Brandon Gill when it comes to the Smithsonian, what they are pushing, these ideas are being pushed on our youth and our kids all through college. Are you worried about this? Could this actually seriously take over in this country?
This is what they're doing nonstop because they know. And Thomas Tank, you're exactly right. I just got some pretty intense dental care done, and it was 5 figures. God bless America. This is what they're doing nonstop. I realize Newsmax is Fox News on steroids, but the principles still hold true. They are in constant fear-mongering mode, and then liberal networks are in constant placating mode. Like, hey, look, progressives, I hear you. I hear what you're saying about these things. We need to figure out a solution, but please understand, Reaganism and capitalism is the way forward. And I am building to something here. If you haven't seen the short that I put up on my socials yet, we're going to be jumping into that in a moment here. McTime's asking, what are you guys' thoughts on socialism and communism here? We're jumping into all of it. And by the way, McTime, if you're interested, I do always offer anybody in the audience who wants to join. My roots are in talk radio, so I enjoy user interaction. So I'm posting a link. If you want to hop on the show for a little bit, you're more than welcome to. Because we can have a conversation just in the middle of it, or anything I say you agree or disagree with. But to answer your question in short, I believe capitalism's fine, but it needs a socialism waistband. And communism makes sense on paper, but if you have corrupt officials, communism will obviously circle the drain. And I do think it's ironic that the entire Cold War, when we were fighting communism, that was when FDR politics were the most pervasive, which is interesting, right? As soon as the Cold War ended and we no longer viewed communism as a threat, they started rolling back all of these different elements of the New Deal that were good for the public. Oh, please, McTime, everybody has something interesting to add, but don't feel pressured. You're not obligated to come on here, but you're always more than welcome. I'm glad you're here. You should subscribe to the channel. We do live talk radio. Well, internet talk radio, 9 to 11 Central Time, Monday through Friday. So if you like what you're hearing, you should jump on board. I'm pretty new. Just got canceled about a month ago. So independent now, but we're making it happen. We got a Legend of Neon on the TikTok chat here. I'm going to hold the phone up to the microphone. What's on your mind, Legend?
Hey, so you made some very interesting points that I just wanted to address. It's so interesting that Republicans are, using because the clip that you showed just shows you who these people have always been underneath, and I don't, excuse the expression, but the Joker said it. These people are just going to show you who they've always been. At the end of the day, they're willing to drop their morals if it means that they can get what they want.
Do you believe Democrats, leftists as well, but do you believe, because I see Democrats do the same, I'd argue Republicans tell you who they are every day. It's Democrats who cosplay as the good guys, as the pushback, as the stopgap to Republicanism. And then when El Sayed starts running away with the race, they're like, you know what? He's Muslim, and I think he's a sexist too, because they'd rather lose to a Republican than allow an actual leftist to win. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I 100% agree. 100%. Because, like you said, it's the Joker and Batman going back in this, loop of who can prove the other wrong, who can prove whose morals don't make logical sense. And it's just a fight over basically moral standing. And it's so sad that we've gone in a society where both sides would rather do what Batman and Joker are doing, which is just fighting each other in circles instead of trying to figure out real solutions that the people have been begging for and demanding for months, even years. And it breaks my heart because no one's taking care of the things that need to be taken care of. And people like you are the only ones who are willing to do something about it. And it's not fair to you guys because you guys are having to do the work that these people should have been doing a long time ago. And it's ridiculous.
Hey, well, first of all, I appreciate the compliment, and I think you're exactly right. And it's people like everyone in these chats that I think are trying to get shit done. And I appreciate the comments, Legend. I'm going to drop you off there to continue the flow of things here, but I think you're accurate, and I do think it's a cyclical argument and fight in nature that can't be ignored. And I appreciate your attitude there. I saw KG say communism works fine in an anthill. You know what's funny? They actually make a joke about that in the third Ant-Man movie. And Michael Douglas talks about how the ants all work together, although he refers to it as socialism. And he goes, I know socialism is a charged word in society today. And then that movie got review bombed, although it also wasn't very good. So I'm not going to call it review bombed, but it didn't deserve to get the ratings it got. And I swear to God, it's because it advocated for that there. But so jumping into like the main thrust of this first hour of what I want to talk about. And I see D asking, I'm joking, D. Anna and I are still friends. I know she's listening. I'm just jerking her around. I enjoy jerking people around that I'm close with. But it's funny. I hope this doesn't freeze this often for you guys on Facebook, because I always see my live end up freezing and I can't see your comments update. But so in any event, I want to get into the crux of why I wanted to bring this all up with you and why I think you're starting to see the establishment media starting to sweat in their boots a little bit here, and allow me to establish why. So I have to share my screen again here, although I got to share a different screen. Hold on. Okay, so stop the screen share, start the screen share. There we go. And then I need the CNN article. There we go. All right, I'm figuring this shit out. I am good at the job. There we go. So I'm just going to read this because I know it's a little tiny, and obviously the TikTok people and anybody just listening audio wise can't read what I'm doing right now. Fox News polling, Pew Research polling. This is an amalgamation of a number of different types of polling. The statistics I'm about to give you are specifically based on Republicans here, and not like a mixture of everybody. It's not like they asked a bunch of self-described socialists or communists. The data I'm about to give you is specifically Republican in nature. Just to underscore, fewer than half. This is as per CNN, making an amalgamation of all of these different statistics here. Wait, what's that? Rebecca calling tomorrow. Fewer than half of Republicans, the party that claims to embrace free markets, now have a strongly favorable view of capitalism. It's at 42% of them endorse a Bernie Sanders sounding sentiment about our rigged economy. It is similarly the percentage of Republicans who say the system is rigged to favor the wealthy has gone from 30% to 42%. 72% of Republicans viewed capitalism favorably back in 2019. That is down to 61% today. And the percentage of Republicans who have a strongly positive view of capitalism have gone from 54% to 41%. A couple other statistics. Fewer than half of Americans say capitalism is working even somewhat well, down from 60% a decade ago. As I oftentimes tell you, it is the plight of the progressive to be right about something 10 years too early. So when all of us were saying this in 2026 while saying we should vote for Bernie Sanders, everybody called us a bunch of socialists, told us we didn't understand how the economy works. Flash forward to 2026, now I'm telling you how Republicans feel. 61% of Americans say they were bothered a lot by the feeling that the wealthy don't pay their fair share. That included 41% of Republicans and GOP-leaning independents. The same poll showed another 60% overall, and 42% of Republican-inclined voters said the same thing about corporations paying their fair share instead of wealthy individuals. And views of big business went from 19 points positive in 2012 to 25 points negative last year, according to Gallup data. In 2012, it was 58 to 39 positive. Now it is 37 to 62 negative. Nobody is buying it anymore. Republican, Democrat, Independent, Socialist, it doesn't matter. So you're seeing Donald Trump revert to socialists as communists. You're seeing MSNBC trying to be like, guys, look, I hear you. The economy's bad. All we got to do is get Trump out of office, get rid of the tariffs, stop the war, and things are going to go back to the way we wanted them, as if the economy under Joe Biden was something that was acceptable to the majority of people, especially the majority of people under 40. You're starting to notice the narrative shift, and the people are getting nervous, and we are dealing with it here in Wisconsin too, with the rhetoric surrounding Francesca Hong. Do not ignore what you're seeing happen in front of your face here, because I find this story and this data to be absolutely fascinating. People are waking up to the fact, again, I'm not saying we have to abolish capitalism. I'm not trying to radicalize people into being anti-capitalist. I'm here to show you that the idea of taxing people less that make more and that we will all be richer as a result of it is a laughable assertion in 2026. I'm trying to think. I know we had a story, and I'm blanking on it now, where somebody was it was Politico. Politico said raises are starting to shrink, and that's a good thing for workers. And the implication is that the raises are shrinking, which means companies are taking in more of that money as opposed to workers, and as a result, the price of goods are going to come down. Do any of you listening still believe that in 2026? And that's what Politico's doing. That's not Breitbart. That's not OAN. That's not Fox News. That's Politico. So it goes to show you the way. And I hope, and I swear to God, I made the joke in the short. This is the kind of logic that gets you canceled when you're the highest rated talk show in a market, because these are the kind of eye-opening experiences that show you, do you see when the liberal media are the ones trying to convince you, actually, do you really want that to happen? Do you really want to make less? Or do you really want to make more money and watch the cost of goods continue to go up? I don't think anybody's buying that anymore, guys. I'm going to be real with you. I don't think anybody's actually buying what they're selling anymore. Before 1940, we taxed them at 98%. Yeah, I always say between 1945 and 1983, which exactly coalesces with the Red Scare, essentially. That was when we were taxing the shit out of the wealthiest individuals. And in 2026, if a candidate came out and said, we're going to tax the wealthiest Americans at 40%, they would have been demonized as socialist. And I am here telling you that in 2026, you can demonize them as socialist and it won't work. Yeah, Keto, somebody was just calling in and saying that before. Left-wing Gorilla says they would be better off if it would change the label to something like progressive capitalism. Well, I think that's what do they call themselves? Social democrats, right? Or social democracy. Isn't that what like Scandinavian countries call themselves? There's like a very famous meme where there's like two people arguing back and forth, and one of them's like, I hate socialism. And they were like, or socialism never works. And they say, oh, well, look at what's going on in the Scandinavian countries and what they're doing there. And the person yells back, that's not socialism, that's capitalism with a robust social safety net. And the person says, oh, okay, good. Well, then let's do that. And the guy screams back, no, that's socialism. And like, that's the circular nature that we are on. And they can feel the grip on the narrative beginning to slip. And that's why you're seeing voices subdued. That's why you're seeing these shady tactics, both in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in Maine. I was listening to Democrats talk about the importance of taking Susan Collins down. Again, it was appropriate for Graham Plattner to step down, but let's stop pretending like the Democrats gave a shit about whether or not Susan Collins needed to be taken down when the other candidate was saying no more bombs to our allies in the Middle East until we can figure our own shit out. The narrative is, the foundation of the narrative is shaking, in my opinion. Progressive capitalism is a scam. It might be the only step we have right now. You guys are having very in-depth conversations in the chats. I think I'm just going to have to punt and try and catch back up later. Otherwise, I'm going to sit here reading quietly for like 5 minutes, and I don't think anybody's signing up for that. But so I find that entire story to be fascinating, because Republicans are the final stalwart. If Republicans are the ones saying they no longer believe that the system works for them and Democrats are still trying to defend it, I've said it 1,000 times over. I think the perfect political spectrum is the Democrats as they are today become the right. They're Reaganist, they're pro-big business, they're pro-corporate subsidy, but they're also nice to minorities. They're nice to gay people. They're nice to black people. They're nice to Mexicans. They still kind of hate Muslims, it seems like. But they're nice to most minorities. In my opinion, that is the best. And then the left represents the actual left. And we stop pretending like the Democrats represent anything other than the right of center, because that's what they are. And that's why there is such a uniquely low interest in politics in 2026. Or a turnout, I should say. There's an interest in politics. It's that the two-party system is designed to tamp down any kind of excitement, and there are candidates around this nation breaking through those efforts to tamp them down. And I have a feeling we're going to see it get more interesting before it gets less interesting. If Hong and El Sayed come out of these elections, of course Donald Trump's going to call it rigged, and we're just going to have to do our best to ignore that moron. But like, It's going to be interesting what the tactics are. Do Democrats embrace a leftward shift, or do they find a way to tamp it down even further than they already have? That's going to be a fascinating thing, because mark my words, I think Francesca Hong could beat Tiffany by 6 points. I think El Sayed's going to be doing something very similar. And they were even showing the Republican Party used to believe that the narrative that they could use to drive a wedge in the democratic socialist movement was our allies in the Middle East. They thought that Republicans were still staunchly pro-Israel, and that would be like, look, these guys are going to hang them out to dry in the Middle East. And data came out this morning showing you that that is a bipartisan issue. It is a minus 55% favorability regardless of party. I mean, Democrats are obviously further out. It's 4 in 5 people are not interested in continuing a partnership, or at the very least cutting off the aid. But even Republicans are catching up to that as well. It's exciting. It should have happened a decade, maybe a decade and a half ago, but we can't go backwards. We can only go forwards, and I'm absolutely here for it. I don't think capitalist attitudes serve society in every aspect like healthcare. I think profit motive makes it predatory. I'd agree with that. And I honestly, I think it's the same thing in the housing market. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I do cash out of the building that I own, there's a good chance that I'm going to clear a pretty profit. And like, I should be excited about that. But like, we shouldn't be looking at homes as like our main driver of wealth. We should be looking at homes as a place that you can avoid the elements. And like when you start looking at it as a way to generate wealth, that's a problem. And I think it's what ultimately leads itself to the problem that we are in. The establishment gets all indignant that anyone dares to question capitalism, but it's so obvious that our insufficiently regulated crony capitalism is eating everyone and everything. 1,000%. 1,000%. And like, I'm only just getting started. And like, for those of you that were here last night for Ben After Dark, you're going to hear some replayed clips here. And I did kind of give you guys that warning. This is Fox News right here. Because I showed you Newsmax scaremongering about capitalism and socialism. Now let's go to the people that realize they can't even scaremonger people out. Now it's people that are mad that the Republican Party doesn't represent a better counterbalance to that. Keep in mind, the only reason some of you guys are even entertaining what I am saying right now is because the economy is so clearly fucked up at this point. And if it were even remotely working, when 40% of people couldn't afford a spare set of tires, nobody gave a shit. Nobody cared at all that 4 in 10 people couldn't afford a spare set of tires. Now that that's getting closer to 7 in 10 people, it is becoming unavoidable that it is no longer a flaw in the people. It is a flaw in the system. 230 million failures aren't individual. That is systemic. So listen to this conversation. This is Senator Lankford of Oklahoma speaking to Larry Kudlow. I'm not going to play the entire video. It's a 5-minute video. Listen to the question, look at the facial expressions, and enjoy this video, because this, to me, is probably the better if you do not want to see taxes increased on the wealthy, which something tells me that's a very small percentage of the people in this audience. But if you do not want to see that, Larry Kudlow's questioning is the right frame of reference. And to be clear, I realize that Larry is asking the questions the way he's asking them to provide cover for all of Donald Trump's fuck-ups and make it seem like it is the fault of the Republican House and the Republican Senate. I do not ascribe to that mentality, but I am still going to play this because I think it's worth hearing. Give this a listen, and we'll talk about it once it wraps up.
You had to bear the brunt of that opening, but I'm telling you, right now, you, the leadership in both houses, are bungling everything, sir. I say that with all due respect, and we are personal friends. It's not, but you're bungling everything. Nothing is getting done. Your messaging is non-existent. You've lost your swag, your swagger, your riz, or whatever the young people say. No one knows what the heck you're doing, sir. They have no idea.
Yeah, you're welcome. And this is part of the challenge we've got with all of our media friends out there that continue to be able to beat up on Republicans and say Republicans are all the problem. But apparently the socialist Democrats in New York City, they seem to be perfect because most conservative media right now is beating up on Republicans.
Right. The socialists in New York is why our costs are high in Wisconsin. That's the logic they want to try and hit you with.
And just ignoring the socialists who are running rampant all over the country. So I look back on what happened with the One Big Beautiful Bill. I look at the housing bill we just passed. There's a lot of things that are going on that are good, and I understand.
Nobody has attacked Mondami more than I have, for heaven's sake. That isn't the point.
I wasn't saying that just about you. I was saying
that isn't the point.
This is the challenge that we're up against.
What is it that your policy is? Senator Langford, my friend, what is your policy? Where are the tax cuts? Where are the spending cuts? Where's the waste, fraud, and corruption reduction? Where is all of that? Where is the reconciliation bill? Where's the straight talk and messaging for the midterm? Where's the growth messaging? Where's the we're going to make it better for taxpayers and working folks messaging? Come on, Senator.
Glad to be able to take it on, Larry. Glad, and again, you and I are friends. We've talked through all this stuff before.
Doesn't sound like your friends.
Last year and what's coming out right now on all the tax policy. Obviously, tax rates didn't go up. We dealt with permanent expensing for all of our businesses in trying to be able to make sure they're growing. They're growing. The reason we're actually dealing with growth right now, you are an expert on this. You know it full well, is because the changes we made in last year's tax bill. We'd love to do a lot more on that, and we will be able to do a lot more on that. But we're still getting all of those things implemented right now. The housing bill that we just passed starts a whole different process of taking the federal regulation.
So he goes on and on from there. I don't think we have to listen to the entire thing. I think you guys can determine whether or not what he's saying is actually making any sense or whether or not it's relevant. But it highlights to me that even the media people, and I said this last night during Ben After Dark, when you lose Fox News, I said the Democratic media was more than happy to pretend that Joe Biden was still cognitively aware all the way up until he said, "We beat Medicare." And then after that debate performance, it became abundantly clear that he had been in cognitive decline. There was no avoiding that. And that was basically the final nail in the coffin as to whether or not he was going to run in 2024 or not. Some of us were calling for a primary as early as January 2023, but we were ignored and told we weren't team players. And then we found ourselves in the position we are in. You are now watching the Republican equivalent of that happen right before your eyes. The people no longer believe. Republicans are starting to embrace socialism because they know that they're anti-socialism. They don't know that they're embracing socialism. If you call it socialism, they'll tell you they don't want it. But what they do know is that this system in place does not work. But the brainwashing surrounding that term is so pervasive that it's hard for them to kind of shake free of it. But it doesn't change the fact that they know what's happening doesn't work. I agree. It was a stunning debate, Stevie. I wouldn't say I was shocked. I mean, I was very vocal from off the jump about that kind of stuff. Johnny says Republicans don't know what socialism is. I agree. I'd argue most Democrats don't know what it is. Again, very few socialist candidates are actually running on the concept of seizing the means of production. Like fundamentally, this is such boilerplate. Like I realize it is more complex than what I'm about to say. But fundamentally, what capitalism is whoever owns the capital owns the wealth. Meaning, if Howard Schultz of Starbucks, or formerly of Starbucks, buys all these buildings, buys all this coffee making equipment, and then provides the jobs, he deserves the lion's share of the revenue. Socialism's belief is the work doesn't get done without the workers. So the people who provide the tools for work get a little bit more money, but fundamentally without the workers doing the job, you wouldn't have any profit. So the workers deserve to have more share in the profits that are generated. That is the most base level, without having notes in front of me, just from the hip kind of description as to the difference between the two. And I don't think a lot of people, so like a lot of Democrats go up there and say, hey, we should raise the taxes on the highest earners from 45%. They're not saying shit about like we're going to seize the means of production and give the means of production to the workers and say, just because Howard Schultz bought all this coffee making equipment, the coffee making equipment belongs to the workers of Starbucks. And we're going to make sure that they all have a capacity to make a living working there. Nobody's really saying that. They're saying we think we should tax Howard Schultz more and allow him to maintain the tools and the leverage of making as much profit as he can, but then we're going to tax some of that. And realistically, I don't have very much faith in the Democratic Party to not tax these billionaires more and ship all our money off to Ukraine and Israel rather than give it to the people. Like, there's an element of that needs to be embraced as well. And so I think a lot of people don't really understand what the differences are. And then, of course, communism just means no ownership. Nobody owns anything. The workers don't own it. The employees don't own it. We're all on this giant rock floating through space together, and we're all working together to try and achieve a goal. Contribute to society, and your needs will be met. Like, again, on paper, very simplistic view of things. But those are the three competing visions. And as I often say in my regular life, you show me any ism, communism, capitalism, socialism. If leadership is corrupt, I will show you a few people at the top with all the resources and a bunch of people on the bottom struggling to get by. It's a matter of the people that we put in power. There are well-intentioned people, and I'll be honest, even well-intentioned people. I've seen Lord of the Rings. I haven't read it, but I've seen it. I understand that the power of the ring corrupts most people. If you have the ring and you're like, I need to destroy the ring because the ring's corruption, and then you have the ring and you're like, or I could use the ring. Like, I get it. Like, it's human nature to want to do those kinds of things. But it doesn't change the fact that people know, regardless of their capacity to define the economic system that we use, people know that what's happening isn't working. Harambe saying people just executed a man in Madison. Yeah, we've been talking about that. And I mean, even the way we use police in the defense of capital, like, it all intertwines. Intersectionality, it's a main progressive tenet. I joked with a friend of mine. I said, you use the word intersectionality, and anybody who doesn't know what it means, their eyes gloss over. But intersectionality basically means I use it in terms of defending public education, because every time somebody talks about increasing funding for public education, there's inevitably a naysayer that says, why would we raise the funding going to public schools when they're performing so poorly on a yearly basis? And it's like, well, the poor performance on a yearly basis is partially because of what's going on in public schools, but there's so many other factors. Those of you that are millennials and older, like, my mom was one of the smartest people I ever met in my life. The day I was born, she quit her job and became a full-time mom. Not knocking that at all. And until my younger brother, who's 2.5 years younger than me, turned 12, she didn't go back to work. And once we were both in junior high, she got back to working. And you know what happened from birth until 12 for us? Every single day, we had somebody there running multiplication tables with us, teaching us how to read before we even went to kindergarten, not waiting for the teachers to show us how to read. Like, the list goes on and on. And so the reason why we performed well, and the reason why more people performed well then, was one person stayed home. I am not implying that women, or men for that matter, are required to stay home. But I am saying that, more importantly, in 2026, even if you wanted to stay home, the likelihood that one salary is enough for you to get by in this economy probably isn't right. Not only is one salary not enough, but oftentimes you might have to work 2 jobs. Then it gets even more complicated when health issues get thrown involved. Did a parent pass away when the child was 8? How are you doing with the schoolwork there? And the idea that we can't raise funding for public schools because the public school performance is headed in the negative trajectory is very easily dispelled when you start considering all the other factors that might contribute to that kind of outcome. And you take that idea, that's one basic concept of life: public school and the downward progression of things, of performance. Then you begin to realize how healthcare ties into that conversation. Then you realize how crime ties into that conversation. Then you realize how housing ties into that conversation, policing, social work. all of these things tie into one another. We pay social workers $10 an hour to do very important work. So anybody who's worth a damn realizes that there are so many other ways that they can make money, and they're not going to do it. And the only people that end up staying are the people that realize that they're not going to be able to make much more money doing anything else. And no offense to those people, but if that's the case, then that probably means you're probably not even qualified to be working as the social worker then. And so it all intersects, it all ties together, and we act like all of these things are different problems. And when you begin to realize that we deal with an economic system that creates these fake scarcity situations because we have abundance, the fact that people are struggling is a design, it is not a necessity. You begin to realize that the entire system in place is designed to preserve that system. Whether people identify as liberal or conservative, they both have their own measures to defend a system that fundamentally has left people behind. And so I'm personally encouraged by the shift in right-wing attitudes towards capitalism, because I'm not saying we have to abolish it. Wouldn't be pissed if we abolished it, but I'm not saying that it's my way or the highway. But I'm saying I think embracing a reality that people that are struggling are not lazy or that no one wants to work anymore is not a valid excuse anymore for why people are struggling in this nation. I'm excited about that. McTime, I think you're going to be a tremendous addition to this audience, by the way. Tell your friends about this show. It's a very grassroots effort right now to grow this. So tell your friends about this if you have any like-minded friends. Like I said, we're here 9 to 11 Central Time, Monday through Friday. Just Jay says she's working from home with her kiddo as we speak right now. Luke says, and when the second income isn't enough to pay for the child care that would be needed, 1,000%. There was a receptionist when I first started working at that shitty little radio station that I liked very much. And when she had her second kid, she had to quit working because there was what she was getting paid to work at the front desk of the station was not nearly enough to subsidize childcare. So she just became she became a stay-at-home mom and didn't want to. Again, there's nothing wrong with that if you want to. It's when you have to that I think everybody gets very frustrating. It's what gives birth to midlife crises, frustration, frustration in the home, frustration with the marriage, frustration with life. And like that frustration then leads to unproductivity. It leads to depression. You know what's interesting? I feel more energetic and excited about taking on the world now than I did for the last 2 years when I was actually employed doing this. It's actually more fun to try and make this my own thing and to truly just be able to talk to you guys about this stuff. I'm not going to sit there and pretend that segments like this didn't happen on OG Outside the Box, but like I probably wouldn't just be full-throatedly saying like, I think capitalism as we know it has to go away and we need a new system. And I do think we are headed towards an inevitable crash of some kind if we don't, because this system is propped up by just not enough people. I was one of the first voices talking about the K-shaped economy, but at this stage of the game, everybody knows we're in a K-shaped economy. 10% of the population is buoying more than 60% of the economy. That is not sustainable. And what's name goes hearsay, exactly what I was thinking, reminds me of your early show today. Nice. I appreciate that. This feels more on par with how I like doing things for sure. Not to say I'm loving interviewing all the local candidates for shit, and I am going to continue doing that as well. But I like espousing this kind of rhetoric. I like demagoguery. I'm in for it. And again, anybody, I need to get better at pasting this stuff, or I need a producer, one or the other. My local radio station, all the Republicans did was shit on women's and on minorities live on the air. How is this legal? You know what's even funnier, Keto, is I got fired for doing the opposite. It's almost like the talk radio gods do not want anything else. And I've already established, if you try and apply for a corporate gig at iHeartMedia in talk radio, it says iHeartMedia is searching for a conservative talk show host with a proven track record of success. And it's like, well, I have the second half. Are you interested in that? Probably not. Having children in America is an Ouroboros. That's a snake eating itself. The country wants more children but refuses to help parents. It's a tale as old as time. You're exactly right. And then they're trying to make it more difficult to get an abortion, a shashmortion, to have, so that you have to have the kid and you find yourself in that debt trap. Like, people got mad when I told this story on the air a long time ago, so I kind of stopped telling it, but I'm going to do it now. My dad used to work for his dad. Yeah, I'm not going to be part of iHeartRadio, BC, but I appreciate that. My dad used to work for his dad before I was born. And there was another guy that worked there as well, not related. The guy that wasn't related ended up having a child while he was working there. And my dad's dad, who I never met, did not pay well. And when the coworker announced that his wife was pregnant, my dad's dad looked at him and said, "You see that guy? I have him forever now. No matter what happens, he's not going to complain. He's not going to threaten to leave. He's not going to ask for more money because he needs this job as is." There's a lot of people out there that don't want to embrace the fact that a lot of business owners, that is how they view childbirth. A lot of politicians, that is how they view childbirth, as a trap in an economy that will not let you out of it on the other side of it. And they frame it as, oh, but the life of the baby. Like, no, it is economic. The idea that billionaires care about life in general is a laughable assertion. The idea that incredibly wealthy business owners, some of them do. I don't want to act like all of them act that way. But what is unavoidable is that if you have a kid and you are unprepared for that, you have just set yourself up on a hamster wheel that you are going to really struggle to get off of. And it's unavoidable, in my opinion. Okay, cool, Allie. I appreciate that. Hold on. Let me, she said send her. Give me 1 second here. And like, I'm not saying that's all business owners. I'm not even saying that that's most business owners, but I am saying that there are people that think about it that way. And if you don't want to embrace the fact that that's how some individuals look at the act of having children in an unprepared fashion, then you're not paying attention. Robin says, if you wait to be able to afford to have kids, you'd never have kids. I mean, that's an attitude, but like, also, I don't want to eat hot dogs for the next 18 years of my life because I decided to have a kid and there's no extra money. Like, if what the eldest people in the population are saying about the importance of having children still matters, then there has to be something. Every other industrialized nation has figured out how to do childcare for free. Every other industrialized nation has figured out how to do childbirthing for free. Every other industrialized nation has figured out how to do college for free. You know what I mean? So if you want people to have kids, I have a solution, and the solution has been provided by dozens of other countries if we want to do it. Jules says, I had to fight my company to get paid during leave. I was paralyzed by a back infection and no work. Wow. TR says, my favorite argument about abobos is a living wage calculator from MIT. Oh, sure. I've seen that as well. And what the living wage is now, it's just remarkable. We were talking about the minimum wage yesterday. And like, even if you work for, even if we got the minimum wage up to $15 an hour, because I looked it up, under 1 million people are working for $7.25 an hour. It's like 893,000 or something like that. Even if you're working for $15 an hour, that's $31,200 a year pre-tax. So what does that mean? And I realize we do have a lower tax rate, although some Republicans do want to raise the tax rate on the lowest earners. Make sure they got skin in the game. But Even if we got it to 15, what does that really matter in 2026? Like, I'm telling you, if we weren't starting trillion-dollar regime change wars, we'd have money for childcare. That's a good point, Luke. And we do need those regime change wars. That is for sure. The most consistent argument I've gotten is who's going to take care of you when you're older. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, I can't make that joke. TikTok will absolutely ban me, but I have a joke about that. TikTok thinks I'm a robot. I'm not TikTok. I am just good at the job. There we go. Old Lib or Jeff says that also applies to healthcare. Got to keep the job, especially if you have a health problem. Yet, thank God that I'm not dependent on it. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, it's $600 a month if I wanted to keep the same healthcare that I had whilst employed at that little radio station. According to AI, it costs $330,000 to raise a child in America. I'm assuming that's over the course of 18 years. Feels right. I don't know. I don't know. Parents, hit me up. Does that sound right? $330,000 from birth to 18, on top of, having to raise yourself, pay your mortgage, do all that jazz. Does $330K sound accurate? Angelo 1970 says feels low for 18 years. Because I remember my dad telling me when I was a child that it costs $100,000 to raise a kid. That was in the 90s. So, I mean, you guys tell me. I'm interested in it. Justin says, I can't even take care of a plant, much less a kid. I feel that. True radicals don't concern themselves with growing old. CKK, that was very similar to the joke that I was intending to make. But yes, I agree with that. I never kept tabs on money spent on my child who is now 18. Old Lib says, be nice to your kids. They're picking your nursing home. Oh, no, I always told my dad I'll just put a side on wherever I'm living and he can crash there. OG Michelle says, at least that much, barring any medical conditions or unforeseen costs. Herb says, my previous employer wants to pay $21 an hour for production associates. They struggle to find anyone who wants to work for that. I mean, again, $20 an hour is $1,000 a week. It's $52K a year before taxes. Again, if you don't have any other options, I feel like that's enough to at least subsist. I'm trying to find a way to get endorsements to essentially get me there, not as a final point, but as like okay, I can at least breathe right now kind of point. But yeah, that's interesting. I haven't done the math, but I am certain I spent at least $200K raising my child, and they still live at home at 18, and I pay for almost everything for them. Brian says, maybe if you're providing phones, cars, insurance, private schools, sports programs. I think you might be being a little boomerish there, Brian. Maybe phones. Like, yeah, I didn't get a car growing up. I'm not gonna. I walked both ways up. I owned my first car at 23 years old. Like, I was not given a car, and I had a family member who lost somebody close to them in a driving accident. So the driving rules in general, when I was a 16 and 17-year-old, were very strict in the Commodores household. Thank you for doing that, Allie. Allie's going to be perpetually posting the link for anybody that wants to chime in on YouTube. Oh, we got somebody asking on TikTok as we speak here. Robin wants to hop into the conversation here. What's on your mind, Robin? Or wait, all good. I kind of figured as much. No worries, Robin. I didn't realize. I should have realized that. Yeah, and says uphills both way. Exactly. Child care alone is astronomical. I've been doing segments about that since I moved out here. But yeah, exactly. I always joke. I never thought as a single dude with no kids that I was going to be talking as much about public school and childcare. Brian says, I wear the label if I get forced to. Waka waka. Well, no, Brian, because you get it, but then randomly you kick in the like, what's with them kids in them baggy pants mode? And then I just have to, be like, let's be honest now. And again, the Fox Valley is a little immune, if you're lucky, to the childcare thing, because there is a community element here. I worked with people whose parents would act as childcare. If you're fortunate enough to have your parents at the time when you're having kids, like there have been workarounds for people. Healthcare alone for us goes up by $400 a month to add our child. Interesting. We do provide a car, half of their insurance for the car, did sports programs, but no private school. I think most people don't get private school. Parents don't help with grandchildren anymore. That's interesting. My uncle got me my first car at 16, and I paid him back by working for him that summer. He's a plumber. There you go. And learned some valid skills. Remember, you're on the slide to old. Enjoy the ride. Here's the difference, Brian. Here's the difference and why I think millennials are different. We're the first generation that graduated into the recession, and we're told by all the boomers that the problems with the economy were in our head and the fact that we didn't want to work. And now that we are not the youngest generation and Gen Z is graduating into a pandemic and in all reality, a recession that we're not calling it a recession, Gen Z and some of Gen X boomers and some of Gen X are again pulling the avocado toast bullshit. And millennials are like, no, actually, this economy does suck. And it actually even sucks worse than when we got out of college. And when we were told it was that we were lazy and it was avocado toast. So yes, we are getting old, but unfortunately for your little narrative there, millennials are on pace to be the greatest generation of this century because we're waking up to the fact that the economy's broken. We're the first generation that doesn't trend to the right as we get older. We started off trending to the right because Obama let us down. And then we saw what Republicans had to offer with Trump. We were like, oh, fuck no. Okay, no, let's go way far to the left and see what's out there. And it turns out we found some pretty cool shit. And so millennials are the first generation to buck the trend. And not at 22. In our late 30s and early 40s. It's easy to be anti-establishment or anti the system when you're 24. Like I always tell you guys, it's romantic to be 24 and living in a house built for 3 people with 6 people, and you're all on top of one another, and everybody's getting fucked up and partying and having a good time. Like that's fun. When you're 38 and you have to live that kind of lifestyle, it's not fun anymore. It's not cute. It's a broken system that people want to shake free from. And I think that's the major difference. We are going to get old. Although if I had to predict, and I've made this prediction before, if millennials do become bigots, it's going to be against people that live in virtual reality. Like if virtual reality gets so good that like whatever comes after Gen Alpha, I'm assuming Gen Beta, like they live in virtual reality and you just see like farms of people sitting in recliners in VR headsets like in WALL-E. And like there'll be a bunch of millennials like, I don't know why these youngins can't get into the real world. I love the real world. And like we won't understand them. Like that might be our thing. But I don't know. And I think the fact that I'm noticing that in my 30s means that I won't fall into that trap in my 60s. Or maybe I will. I don't know. Who knows? Avocado toast is probably one of the cheapest meals right now, Violet says. I feel that. Robin says, now that I'm older, I'll tell you the years that I struggled were the happiest years. And I feel that. I absolutely I'm absolutely on board with that attitude. And again, my younger years, granted, there's like an asterisk by mine because I lost a parent at 23, and that kind of like snapped me like into like a different kind of mode where a lot of my innocence died that day, and any innocence I had left was executed on June 22nd, 2026. Whereas now I am just ready to take on the world here. But But I feel that. I feel the attitude, but it's just that it has to you have to be able to get out of that struggle session, I think, is what's so frustrating for a lot of people. Grandma Mickey, aka Mickey on Facebook, who's been a listener of this show for quite a while, sent me a woman on Facebook that I don't think I'm going to be able to play for you guys, unfortunately. Maybe I will actually. Hold on. Am I good at this job now? Am I good at this job now? Let's find out together, shall we? We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then we're going to do this. Okay, maybe I am good at the job here. Okay. This woman sums it up, and she said, when I hear this, all I hear is Ben Commonos doing his show. But this is the reality, and hopefully you guys can hear it here as well on TikTok. But this is how millennials view life post-graduation. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I have to actually click the share screen button or add it to the screen. There we go. Okay, there we go.
Oh, you had a midlife crisis? That's cool. I'm a millennial. I didn't get one of those. I have never once experienced a period of stability long enough to interrupt. I watched the Twin Towers fall on a TV that my elementary school teacher wheeled into our classroom. And then that kicked off a 20-year war with the Middle East. And I graduated into the worst economic recession since the Great Depression, the 2008 financial crisis, caused by boomers that spent the 80s and 90s deregulating the banking industry, then veered directly into the wreckage with a degree that we were told we had to get, and student loan debt into a job market that actively was not hiring. And then when the economy did finally start to stabilize, we got hit with a global pandemic, which exposed every crack in the system, from healthcare and housing to employment and mental health. All of it broke at once. And on the other side of that, the housing market became completely unaffordable. And it's not because we were buying avocado toast or iced coffee. It's because the average home price has outpaced wage growth by 300% since the boomers were buying. So they bought homes for like 60 grand and then watched them appreciate to over $500,000. Now they're sitting on half the country's wealth while telling us we just need to work harder. And now, war with Iran and $5 gas. Social Security projected to run out before most of us retire. A system, by the way, that boomers have been drawing from for years and that we've been paying into our whole careers, but will likely never see a dime of. The audacity to look at us and say, your generation just doesn't want to work. We have been working our whole lives. We've been working hard to survive in the economy you built. We've been in crisis the whole time. So a sports car sounds cool, though. Oh, you
So, I mean, that kind of sums up my attitude on the matter as well. And I appreciate Mickey for sending that one to me. But that kind of sums up the difference. I'm not implying, Brian, that boomers didn't struggle as well, because I saw you talking about your 18% interest on your $25,000 mortgages. But it's the principle of the matter. It's that you're supposed to struggle when you're young, and I understand that, and I'm here for that. And that there were elements to that are very fun and enjoyable, and to a certain extent romantic. It stops being romantic very quickly, especially when you're doing all the right things. That's when it starts to get frustrating. I agree, but every generation had its troubles. It's just easier looking back at my youth and screaming lollipops and rainbows. Definitely agreed about the joys of struggle. We always talk about how great college was, and we literally broke and hungry and would kill to do it again. And I also maintain the reason so many Americans like college so much is because it. Shh, 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 shh. College is the last time that you ever lived in a walkable city. Progressives are very big on walkable cities. We think we built cities too large now. And when you're in college, you could just be like walking to the campus center and you'd run into your friends that you didn't even anticipate running into. You're like, hey, let's go to this place and hang out for 2 hours. And it was just like a good time. And then like you slowly separate yourself from the rest of life. You move out. Even when I was living in Pittsburgh, it was a walkable city. I walked everywhere. I had a car that basically my car was used to get me to the radio station and back. And otherwise I was walking everywhere that I went. You run into people that you weren't even anticipating running into because you get to know everybody. It's an awesome experience. I genuinely believe that's why so many of us have a positive outlook towards college. And, like the lack of bills or a firm understanding of what life was going to be like once you got older. We romanticize the chaos of our youth because we grow up and become stable and comfortable. Our lives are pretty boring. Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. And I even joke, and I'll even disagree with that woman that I played because if you've been listening to the show for a while, I described the start to my radio career as a midlife crisis. I was laying on a beach in Mexico with these two Australian women watching the sun come up while turtles were emerging from the coastline to bury their eggs. And I was the saddest person on the planet because I was selling concrete software to businesses that I didn't give a shit about. I had my student debt paid off. I owned my duplex at that point, and I was like, why am I doing anything that I am doing? None of this makes any sense. And within 3 months of that epiphany, I quit the job, took the job for $8 an hour, passing out magnets for a radio station in Pittsburgh, and worked my way up from there. Became the highest rated talk show in the market, and they fired me because I was too goddamn good at the job. And now here we are, and we're going to see where this life takes you. It's a lot of things. I can tell you one thing, it's not boring. But I hear that. Free and cheap healthcare in college. Also, beer was everywhere. That helps too. Welcome to the party, Jeff Maxine. My parents' first house was like $50K. I pulled it up on Zillow the other day, and it's worth $350. My parents, I still live in we moved to the home that my dad currently lives in when I was 3 years old, and it's more than 5 times the price of what they paid for it. It's up 500%. But again, my dad's not an ass. Like he gets what's going on in society. What's up, Elf? Thank you for all the gifts. I always appreciate it when you do that. That's very nice. I couldn't afford a microwave when they came out, Robin said. I know, like, CD players were very expensive as well. Honestly, technology prices staying low, I think, is what kept us all completely oblivious to the economy collapsing around us for as long as it did. It was easy to avoid the worsening standard of the middle class when I currently, in my living room right now, I have a 65-inch flat screen TV that cost me less than $300. That has a beautiful image. And like that kind of stuff keeps you oblivious, in my opinion. I think we were all excited with the new toys that were generated as a result of sweatshop labor. And it kind of kept us oblivious to what was going on. And then all of a sudden, even the technology is now getting too expensive as well. For the long, it just changed, but in 1992, a new video game on a Super Nintendo was $60. And in 2024, a new video game on a Nintendo Switch was $60. Now they're up to $70, $80, even $100 for some games, depending on the size. And people are like, how is this possible? I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. The fact that it stayed $60 for 35 years is actually kind of remarkable. And so I think that was one of the major things that distracted us from the changing in the economic system. The cost of living is surpassing the cost of luxuries, and it was hidden by the oohs and ahs. Exactly. We became addicted to low-cost consumption. I agree. And I have a feeling what's coming next, and just remember me when I say it, because I'm sure I'll be arrested by then. I have a feeling because everybody's addicted to YouTube, right? And not just for us, distraction points of view, but I don't know how to do this. Like, as a landlord, when something would break and I would try and DIY it, my first go-to was all right, let's see if I can look at YouTube and see if there's a way that I can do this in a relatively easy way. I have a feeling that's going to start to cost a bunch of money soon. And you're either going to have access to all these DIY guides and you're not. And then people that are 25 now that do go on to have kids are going to go and say, when I was your age, YouTube was free. And you could just look up videos for whatever you wanted, and you would just have the information at your fingertips. You could just type something into Google and it gave you the answer. Now you got to pay $30, and Google's AI tells you that Hitler actually had a lot of good ideas if you think about it. And And that's what information is today. I think that's the next thing that's going to get taken away from us. But you can see how for a lot of the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, you guys remember when as long as you kept your smartphone for 2 years, you could just upgrade and it was either free or it was $200. And then I remember the first time they told me that it was going to cost $2,400. I was on Verizon and they're like, if you want the newest one, it's going to cost you $2,400. And I was like, no, I'm an existing customer. And they went, yeah, this is how we do things now. But don't worry, we can put you on the Edge plan and that'll stretch it out over 2 years. So you only have to pay $200 a month. And I was like, yeah, but for the next 24 or for the next, for the next 12 months or whatever, or $100 a month for the next 24 months. And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, it's not the same thing. Like, what are you talking about? With the first couple, super cost effective because they wanted everybody to have one. And now it's a goddamn mortgage. Same thing with laptops. Maybe Walmart destroyed our society. Walmart and Amazon. Yeah, absolutely. It didn't help. But so, yeah, I didn't expect this conversation to go this long, but I'm here for it. How is a compromise to free college? We invest in more maker spaces. That way people of all types can go to them and build their luxury items and learn something in the process. I'll take it a step further. I think we should outlaw the practice of requiring a college ID for every profession. If you want to be a doctor, yes, you need years of schooling. If you want to be an engineer, yes, you need years of schooling. I did not take a single broadcasting, journalism, or media class in college. I got a job passing out magnets, became a part-time producer, became a part-time news editor, became a part-time news anchor, became a full-time producer, became a part-time host, and then a full-time host. I learned the entire industry: promotions, production, sales, content generation, content marketing. I learned all of it on the job for horseshit pay in my late 20s and in my early 30s. And I would argue that I am infinitely more equipped. I should say I was infinitely more equipped when that shitty little radio station hired me back in 2022. I had 4.5 years experience in media. And I would argue that I was infinitely more equipped than any 22-year-old who was coming out of a 4-year broadcasting degree for media. And I would say you should not require somebody to go 60 grand into debt to pay them $10 an hour to produce. That math does not add up. So I would say if you don't want to make college free, we have to A, make everybody whole who got fucked over by college, and then B, stop requiring it for the jobs. There's fucking copier sales jobs that are like, yeah, if you don't have a degree in marketing, I just don't know how we can let you sell these copiers. And that's a ridiculous assessment. That's just a ridiculous statement. And so that's the kind of shit that has to go away. CKK says, I went to school through 5 years for 5 years through my apprenticeship. The difference being I was paid to be there versus the standard students paying for the privilege of higher education. Exactly. And the freaking propaganda they give you when they're there. They tell you, oh, it doesn't matter if you have your major picked yet. You don't have to know exactly what you want to be. Don't worry, guys. You're only 18. You don't need to worry. You don't have to declare a major until you're 20 years old. Or yeah, that's what my college told me when I got there at 18. Now I got in there knowing what I wanted to be. But if you waited until you were 20, you absolutely were not going to graduate in 4 years. So now you're there for 5 years. And the 5th year, you're no longer eligible for Pell Grants, for so many versions of student aid that only exist for 4 years. So the last year you're there and it's all on your dime. And the college that I chose to go to cost $32,000 back in 2010. It's up to 70 fucking grand now to teach people how to do math and whatnot. And it's it's all designed, but they want you be yourself. Just be free. It's no big deal. And it's such a racket. And that's the liberalism of society coming out that drives me absolutely nuts. Tarakan is on TikTok here. What's on your mind, man?
I got to chime in on this one, man, because I have over 200 undergraduate hours of college and some graduate level ones too. And my major was currently I'm working as a custodian. Okay. And so go figure. Yeah. And I'm an intelligent person. I'm proud of myself for doing all that and getting my degree and everything, but I got my degree in music.
Sure.
Oh my goodness. Totally unmarketable degree.
Yeah.
You can't find work in that field at all. It's horrible. And so I was actually planning on being a worship leader, and then, now I'm atheist. So it didn't work out well. But anyway, so I didn't get the ed component. So I went back to school for another 8 years. I mean, we're talking 13 to get my bachelor's. And so if I tacked on another 8 years going to school part-time, working full-time, and to get my teaching certificate. I got all the way through my teaching curriculum, got to student teaching, which is an entire semester with zero pay.
Sure. My brother did it.
Full time. You're working full time. In fact, I was putting in 50-hour work weeks and not getting paid a damn penny. In fact, I had to pay for my tuition and, and fees and stuff. A $350 fee just to do this course. And then the cooperating teacher says, "Oh, we don't like you." They just turn their nose up at me. And, I'm like a late 40-year-old guy. And it's a field. I was in elementary ed, and I was in this field that is, I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way, but it's very female dominated. Okay. It's a very, the culture is.
I worked with special needs kids, and I was one of 3 dudes that was working with special needs kids. So I get it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the thing is, I'm just saying it's kind of like a little bit of a bias. And my classes, when I took all my classes, I'm in class, 90% of the people are in there are 21-year-old sorority girls. And they're almost all white. And they really preach diversity and inclusion and equity. And I'm totally bought in on that. But I'm like, how diverse is all white girls that are 21 years old? This is not healthy. It's not a demographic. We need some diversity here. Occasionally you have a black girl, but, and occasionally you have a guy, but it's you don't have any. I was always the oldest student in my class, and it was just hard. And I'm like, and I got with a bad cooperating teacher, and she was a micromanager, and I could not handle it. And I'm like, good Lord, lady, you're just all over my ass. And it was but I'm like, why should we make teachers do a semester of student teaching with no pay?
Yeah, at very least, I think it should knock something off of the tuition, I would say. Would you be in favor, in my opinion, the college that I went to offered teaching degrees at $32,000 a year, or you could go to a different school and get a teaching degree at $10,000 a year, and you're learning the same shit. To me, I'm beginning to think that your college should be cost dependent on the major that you are pursuing. Engineers are going to make more than teachers, and they shouldn't be paying the same dollar amount for the education that they're receiving.
And you guys get paid internships. I mean, ours were unpaid. And I also did a music internship too at this mega church.
Well, I'll tell you right now, media internships still aren't paid. Erin, the intern, didn't receive a single dollar when she was interning on Outside the Box. I can guarantee you that.
We need to get rid of unpaid internships because it's just unhealthy. Because what it does, this is what people don't realize. It affects the demographics. So the people that can afford to do that are the rich people. The poor people can't afford that. Like, I'm not rich, and like I just about couldn't afford to do that. Like, and now I got to do it again because I have to repeat it. And I'm like, oh man, I have to go through the gauntlet twice after. I mean, God, I've been in college since 1992.
Yeah.
I mean, give me a break here, people. I've been in college longer than some of my classmates.
I feel that, man. Hey, look, I appreciate you always calling in, sharing in your personal experience on matters, and I think it adds a lot to the conversation. I think you're spot on with your assessment, and I appreciate the call. You take it easy and have a good weekend, bud. Yeah. Good shit there, though. Stevie's saying colleges should get paid a percentage of what you earn post-graduation for a number of years, no or very low tuition. That way they would support graduates in job searches and cater to students to what employers need. Exactly. There wouldn't be some of these throwaway majors that so many people end up taking. I'm right there with you. There's so many better ways to do it. That's why the show's called Outside the Box, is because like this is the kind of stuff that we think about when we do this show. There's so many better ways to do it, and people act like there's nothing that we can change. Do you know how many hours of coverage about whether or not Donald Trump is going to be able to fly his plane has been on national media over the course of the last 24 hours? Instead of having this kind of discourse, instead of talking about the failing economy outside of the perspective of the economy is failing because of Donald Trump, and not that this isn't a much wider and more systemic problem than anybody could hope to pretend that it is. It's the media is doing this on purpose. And I saw some of you guys letting me know, ABC News and NBC News both eventually ended up covering what took place in Madison. To this moment, I still haven't seen it happen on any of the main, like the MSNBCs, the CNNs, the Fox Newses, CNBC. Haven't seen it anywhere on those. Not even like a bottom of the hour chaos in Madison as protesters go and disturb a concert or some shit. Like nothing of that. AP's carrying it, exactly. But in terms of the main networks with the largest audiences in terms of, TV news, because as much as it sucks, I read most of the actual info I present you on this show comes from me reading, not me watching. But I also know, and I have a feeling if you listen to this show, it's more than likely you also read the news. But statistically speaking, nah. And by the way, I'm not even allowed. How crazy is this? And like, there is no right answer to this, because I don't think the government should be running the media, but I also think the idea that the media operates for profit is nonsensical. That's why I'm hoping once I pass my background checks for YouTube, I want to become a fully crowd-funded show. Just like, if you can't afford anything, I'm not going to paywall the show ever. But like, everybody who can chip $10 in is fine. But like AP, if you notice, you can go back and listen to almost 4 years of Outside the Box on the radio. I never once cited AP. And it's not because I don't read them. It was because you have to pay the AP a license fee in order to be able to use their news stories in your content. And we, as a station, did not pay that license fee. So I would see a story on AP, and then I'd have to go through the trenches and try and find another news organization that was probably just aping off of the AP. But I could be like, oh, The Hill is reporting, and then it would be like, check out this AP article, and I would just skip that part, because we couldn't use AP because they have to make money as a news organization. So they charge you. So like, that in and of itself is a problem too. And again, I'm not saying the answer is to nationalize the news industry because I recognize how quickly that would also go south. But the fact that there is a profit motive in news is why your local news stations are completely collapsing in on themselves. It's why the media in general, even the national networks, are doing things on more and more of a shoestring budget. It's because there is a profit incentive and the profit for news is not there. I am fortunate enough that there are companies on the local scene that are willing to buy into me. I don't even know if the companies that are agreeing to work with me in September actually like my politics or not, but they like me. And that is how I'm able to find people. But most organizations, if you do not have a personal relationship, do not want to wade into political discourse. It's it's a simple reality of the situation, and then that's why 50% of the commercials on fill in the blank here of of a televised news network are pharmaceutical commercials. And you know what conversation never comes up on those networks? How much the pharmaceutical industry is screwing us over with the prices they're charging Americans versus every other nation. News for profit and 24-hour news, another thing we can thank St. Reagan for, says Nataki. Exactly. We also have paywalls on scientific research papers. Exactly. Exactly. Because how do you fund the research if the government's not going to do it? It's we're hiding the knowledge behind money. And like that's why I said that's why I'm gonna have the sponsors at least at first, but it's always going to be in the back of my mind. Like, I wonder if today's the day I said a thing that's going to scare the sponsors away, which is why the ultimate goal is to become completely user funded. And like I live a simple enough lifestyle that I really don't need that many people to buy into that concept with me. And I just gotta, keep the content good is kind of the goal here. But got to pass the background check first. Hope they don't find out about the murders. Justin says paywall articles are a pain. Writers need to get paid. Damn the AI, but there should be an alternative to investigative articles than paywalls. I agree, but what is it? You know what I mean? Unless like people are willing to chip in everywhere, which like maybe I throw a couple bucks a year towards commondreams.org because they're crowdfunded and I use their articles quite a bit. There's a handful. I don't pay for a New York Times subscription because fuck the New York Times, but like when they have free articles or when I get gifted articles, cool. I use those for the purposes of what we're trying to do. But I don't know what the solution to that is. John says, Ben, is a charge to exist for all the profits the next frontier? Socialism. Yeah, I mean, yes, I think that is inevitably where we're headed here. Unless we reverse course. We still can reverse course. And if you're joining halfway through here, we spent the first hour talking about how Republicans are waking up to the fact that this system, they're not embracing socialism, but they are saying capitalism is a failure. I see Truckin saying there's a lot of love in these comments. The comments on all the apps are flying, and I'm not ignoring anybody. I'm just getting inundated. So sometimes it's just better. That's why you guys should tune in to Ben After Dark as well. It's much more user interactive than this is. I try and get you guys in when I can, but seems like it's been a lot of positive discourse going on in all the chats today, which is absolutely awesome. You guys on Facebook too, although it's a little quieter over there. What's y'all's thoughts on this administration's attitude towards postdoc programs? I think it'll accelerate the brain drain. 1,000%. 1,000%. I already know that that's the case. That's absolutely the way that things are trending, and that's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that, and I'm not saying that we should do this because education does not make you better or worse than somebody. But in America, we have demonized the idea of educating yourself further beyond high school. In Greece, which I'm a Greek, which is why I know this, or in Iran, which apparently is all terrorists and we shouldn't take them seriously, and they're actually quite dumb because they're not what. if you don't have a PhD and you walk past someone that does have a PhD, people don't even look them in the eyes because they hold education in such reverence in those countries that you're like, oh, I'm not even on the same level as that guy. I don't even deserve to look him in the eye. Now, that's too far the other way. But you compare that to America, where you're ostracized for getting a college degree, let alone going further than that. Oh, of course you think that way. You're college educated. It's like, bro, I was fucked up half of my college experience. You think I was paying attention to what the professors thought politically? No. The idea that people are being indoctrinated in colleges is a very pervasive thought, specifically on the right, whereas in a lot of other countries, it is encouraged and it is free and it is accessible if you want to. We can't have an entire society of that. And as I always state, can I figure out derivatives because I took calc? Yeah, I still can do that with pretty high efficacy. I don't know what good that does me, but you know what I can't do? Fix a car engine. And you don't have to go to college to fix a car engine. You just have to have the hands-on experience. Everybody brings value in a certain way, and we create a system where we act like one side or the other. And depending on what side you find yourself on, you oftentimes look down on the other side. That's a problem. That is definitely a problem. What did CKK say that made you snicker? He oftentimes has some funny shit to say. Maybe Bolt Construction would sponsor Ben. Yeah, and Todd Pingel, Pingel. I know he's their IT guy there, or at least he was. I'm big Todd Pingel, Pingel guy. Although he's Todd Earl now on Facebook. It's a picture of him in his overalls, looking like a goober. Blocked me, so I can no longer respond. If anybody wants to go say hello. But in any event, that's my thoughts on there. I had so many other segments planned for today, but and I still have one more thing that I want to play for you guys. So there used to be, back in 2024, I kind of dropped this trend after a while, but there is a trend where we called it Ben, how do you do this show from the future? Because I would say something, and then 2 weeks later, whatever I was talking about would end up happening, and it happened enough times in a row. That's how I developed as loyal of a fan base as I have in the Fox Valley, because it happened so many times that I was even impressing myself. I do this whole fake cocky thing about being really good at all the stuff that I do, but in reality, I'm incredibly I'm just like everybody else. I'm just like, oh man, I hope I'm doing this the right way. But if you remember correctly, 2 weeks ago, you don't wish you could be like me, Keto, I promise. 2 weeks ago, I mentioned to you guys that almost overnight, you guys are going to really be interested in this. So you guys know I'm very anti-flock camera. I'm very anti-surveillance in general. I've been going, and for those of you that are newer, like McTime, I have been very vocal in the local community about getting our flock cameras and ALPR technology taken down, because I don't like the surveillance, and I think it's a net negative. And I basically said overnight that my Twitter feed became inundated with anti-flock videos. And I was like, something is suspicious about this. I said it was major accounts that by and large were known for shitting on trans people and spreading right-wing propaganda like End Wokeness and Libs of TikTok and so many of these other ones. And all of a sudden, all of their content was about flock cameras, not ALPR tech, flock cameras. And I said to you guys, I was like, it must be because I am searching this shit all the time on my own, so that I know what I'm talking about when I go to these meetings, that that must be why my Twitter algorithm picked up on this and starts funneling this shit into me 24/7. And then I got sent this video, and I'm not saying that it's a fact. I'm going to play it for you guys because it was sent to me by a friend that I trust, and I'm going to have to reshare the screen one more time. So let me, all right, so let's do that. Okay. So, wait, why is the only one that's not coming up there? Okay, hold on. Wait, I gotta think, no pun intended, but I gotta think outside the box here for a second. Okay, so that's going there. Bear with me here. This is about flock cameras. I apologize for the pause. Realistically, the fact that I feel this bad about a pause after an hour and 50 minutes, a pretty consistent thought, should show you guys how I feel about how seriously I take being on point for you guys. I hope that doesn't get lost on anybody. But so, okay, so we'll just pick that one just so that I can start over again. Okay, so stop screen, do that. Okay, one more time, and if it doesn't work, I'm just gonna have to find a workaround, and I will do this for you guys tomorrow. Okay, it worked this time. All right. So as I was saying, in the flock camera videos were perpetually on my feed nonstop, and I was like, this is suspicious, but I need to but I also agree with a lot of the sentiment that they're putting out there. So whatever, I guess this is just how my algorithm works. Listen to this. I'm going to have to restart the video here for you. But listen to this because it is going to blow your freaking minds here.
Certainly a deep state psyop. And I got all the receipts.
You know, one of the content creators for the administration, basically a binder guy, an Epstein binder guy, all of a sudden saying the flock cameras are wrong. And then you did a deep dive and you found out something really interesting.
I found pretty much like at least half a dozen cities that have canceled flock, but then signed up for another surveillance system, Axon.
Except who has ownership in this company?
Well, turns out Trump. Earlier this year, he bought $5 million worth of stock in Axon.
The minions of President Trump going out now against flock. And meanwhile, Americans don't realize they're just being replaced with a different surveillance system where Trump is getting some royalties on the side.
Now there's reporting that this guy has come out with, Tony Ortiz, saying that he's spoken to at least 2 influencers that have been approached about getting paid to post negatively about flock.
So there you go.
Then I looked into the investors. So Flock is invested by Andreessen Horowitz. That's Mark Andreessen, part of the Silicon Valley technocratic elite. Founders Fund, that's Peter Thiel's group, as well as Y Combinator. That is the group that Sam Altman used to run. And if you look at Axon, Axon is a publicly traded company. So that's old school. That's banker finance money. So their top shareholders are BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street.
Right.
It's like, why are they pushing anti-flock? Oh, is it because potentially they want to steer these city contracts towards Axon?
100%.
Is that a possibility?
Yes.
I have one more thing to share.
Yeah.
This is the headline. Epstein could have made $100 million on a secret police tech investment. Former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak helped convicted sex trafficker quietly invest $1 million into a police tech startup in 2015. So Axon just bought last year the company that Epstein founded back in 2015 called Carbon. So now you have the tie of Epstein and the Israelis involved with this Axon company.
And Trump
Versus the technocratic elites. But the thing is, people aren't paying attention because everything is like anti-flock, de-flock. We need to get rid of these flock cameras. But they're quietly putting up these Axon cameras in replacement, and they're tied to Israel, Jeffrey Epstein, Donald Trump, BlackRock, Vanguard.
So that's the point.
That's the point.
It doesn't really matter what evil group is behind it. We need to make sure that we're knocking down all surveillance cameras.
Yo, I called that shit. I called that shit. I told you guys it was suspicious. I told you guys that it was so strange that all of a sudden my feed was inundated. It was every single post on Twitter was anti-Flock. And I was like, yeah, fuck Flock, but this is suspicious. Why are all the worst people on Twitter agreeing with me right now? And why did it all feel like they all started doing it on the same day? And like, this is when I'd say to you guys, I know I was just saying I'm humble and I don't think I'm actually good at this job. I'm actually the best at this job because I am a trend noticer. And fundamentally, what I do is I notice when things, I'm very good at noticing that people get into a routine, they get into a rhythm. And then when that rhythm gets thrown off, that's when I notice it. It's when I begin to notice that, all right, wait a minute. This has nothing to do with children using kitty litter boxes in a gym class. Why is it that exactly that you are posting about this right now, libs of TikTok? Because this is not your MO. Why are you posting about this and wokeness? Aren't you supposed to find me a video of a black person doing a crime? Why are you all of a sudden doing the things that actually benefit society? And I knew it was suspicious. When bad actors act like good people, I always instinctively don't trust them. And this is one of those examples. This is one of those examples. Miss J saying, I heard you say how suspicious your Twitter feed was. I'm telling you, I called this shit 2 weeks ago. I didn't know specifically it was this, and I'm so mad at myself now for not following my own hunch and breaking that story before that gentleman did. I'm blanking on his name, but he is a very famous internet investigative journalist. He's very good at what he does. I've seen his videos before. When you see what you want to see, you know something is messed up. They control what you see. Exactly. That was kind of what I was getting at. It was too perfect. It was like in the Batman animated series when Mad Hatter put Bruce Wayne in the Thing where he never became Batman and like he knew something was amiss. And it's like, this is too nice. Everything here is too good right now that's happening. This is exactly what I thought was amiss when I was talking 2 weeks ago. And it's just so nice to be right. It's the kind of caliber of talk radio that you just don't get anywhere else. It's the kind of caliber of talk radio that you would think that you would want to take off the air because it's far too accurate for people to want to hear, in my opinion. I also, OG Michelle reached out to me with a conspiracy theory as to why I was let go and said, construction companies are some of the highest grossing companies in Wisconsin right now. And the reason they're the highest grossing companies is because of data centers. She's like, just food for thought. And I'm like, yeah, well, you don't need to give me too much tinfoil to just cover myself in it. And that absolutely does seem suspicious when you think about it. What was the sponsor of the station again? I can't remember. Coordinated talking points is MAGA's favorite thing. I'd argue it's the establishment's favorite thing. I'm with you though, but I'd argue it is everybody's, because what did I see just recently? Liberals and the far right are all running the same story about Hassan and his America deserved 9/11. Did you see David Pakman was condemning Hassan Piker recently? And I just want to grab fucking Pakman by the shoulders, smack his little ass across the face a couple times, and just say, you realize that a lot of people look at you and Hassan as exactly the same, right? You can sit there and act like you're some kind of moderate centrist that makes sense, and Hassan is some crazy leftist. And I'm here to tell you right now, they look at you exactly the same. If Hassan went away, they'd call Pakman a crazy communist. They just throw words around. But I'd argue liberals are doing the same thing to him, though. Is there a pat myself on the back emoji? I'll just do it. Oh, nice, CKK. Glad you're in Appleton. Where are you at normally? Are you normally in Michigan? It's a trap, fish dude from Star Wars. Exactly. When both sides are attacking a candidate, you know the candidate is saying something dangerous. I just wish more people woke up to that reality. And I think it is happening. I just wish it would happen faster is all. But God, I'm tired of being right all the time. It'd be nice to be wrong about something just to add a little variety into things, like just to be wrong once or twice. That would be nice. Oh, and by the way, I see Carla asking about it because I said I wasn't going to go. So I'm going to be in Milwaukee. Just a little housekeeping before we call it a show. I'm going to be at Milwaukee on Sunday. I'm going to be speaking at a Green Party event, actually. I'm going to meet Jill Stein, which should be interesting. Carlos is actually going to be there, the guy who we started off the program talking about. He's going to be one of the speakers as well. Looking forward to meeting everybody. That's going to be at Casablanca's at 4 p.m. on Sunday. And what's cool is the speeches don't start until 5. So I might get to the event a little late. But there is a Francesca Hong event in Appleton at the Beer Garden on Sunday from 1 to 3 p.m. That I'm at least going to show up to for the first half hour or so. And then I got to leave. But I'm at least going to show up for a little bit. And that should be interesting. And then on Monday, David Crowley has a meet and greet at the same Beer Garden in Appleton from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. That a Beer Factory, not Beer Garden. Beer Garden was the spot I used to hang out at before Pirate games in the North Shore. Beer Garden fucking slapped. I'm sure the Beer Factory's good too. But nevertheless, and then David Crowley's going to be there 5:30 to 7:30 on Monday. And so I'm going to take that opportunity to reintroduce myself to him as well. If you are interested in meeting either of those candidates, again, it's 1 to 3 on Sunday, 5:30 to 7:30 on Monday. I will remind you about Monday on Monday. So that's where we're at there. Brian says, my girl for Jill Stein. Absolutely. Wait, what's this? I saw he says, Violet said he says all the right things and just also happens to be nice on the eyes. And I just assumed she was talking about me. I'm not even going to look further than just assuming that. But I feel like that's as good a note as any to end on. If you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. Thank you very much, McTime. Subscribe to this channel. Tell your friends to subscribe to this channel. We're trying to build something here. And then click on my link tree. My link tree is in my bio on the Tube of You in the Book of Faces. It has connections to all of my different socials. Link to all of them, because in case I ever get shut down on one app, you're going to be able to find me wherever the hell else I'm doing my thing still. So click that link tree, click all the buttons, subscribe to everything. It's all free. I do have a Venmo donation button as well. Anybody who likes what I'm doing, wants to throw a couple bucks my way, that Venmo is up there right now until I have the more recurring method that funnels through YouTube here. I appreciate everybody for hanging out with me today on a Friday morning. And enjoy yourselves. Have a safe weekend, and I'll be back on Monday to rack them up and do it all again here. So thank you very much for all of the continued support, guys. This is growing more and more every single day, and it's awesome to watch happen. So we'll talk again soon. Take it easy.